Cross tie, he's got it. He's got to sit him backwards. He tapped. This is what
Aljamain Sterling holds the record for the most victories, most consecutive wins, and the most consecutive title defenses in UFC Bantamweight history. Considering how Aljamain Sterling took the UFC title initially, many MMA fans widely disliked him, and they all thought it would only be a matter of time before he lost that undeservedly won belt. However, the Funk Master was determined to prove that he became a champion for a reason. Sure enough, by defending the belt multiple times and delivering dominant performances in the octagon, slowly but surely, Aljo is finally giving some love and respect from the fans. We will look at how Aljamain Sterling became the UFC champion and steadily turned from a villain to a hero. Aljamain was born in New York to Jamaican parents, where he grew up with 7 siblings and 12 half-siblings, many of whom were involved in gang violence. To stay away from such a life, the Funk Master decided to focus his time and energy on a wrestling mat, where he eventually met the UFC GOAT, Jon Jones. Well, Bones turned out to be very influential in Aljo's life, as the Jamaican fighter started to party and use cocaine daily. Just kidding. Thanks to Jon Jones, Sterling switched his focus to MMA, and due to the wrestling credentials he had acquired up to that point, he was able to transition to the new sport smoothly. During his college days, Aljo became a 2-time NCAA Division III All-American with a record of 87-27. Besides wrestling, Sterling has also competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, which sharpened his grappling skills to turn him into one of the most dominant grapplers in the octagon. Due to his unorthodox wrestling style, he earned the nickname the Funk Master. Still, wrestling and grappling weren't satisfying Aljo's appetites anymore, so he decided to focus on his MMA career entirely. By the time Aljamain Sterling made his MMA debut on April 22, 2011, he was already a skilled competitor with tens of grappling bouts on his resume. By competing in BJJ and wrestling tournaments, he acquired a dominant fighting style that consisted of pressuring the opponents by closing the distance and working them on the ground. Before signing with the UFC, Aljo fought 8 times and won all those bouts, 6 of which were before the final bell. His signature finish turned out to be a rear naked choke, as he finished 4 of his opponents with that submission. After earning a record of 8 wins and 0 losses in the local MMA organizations, the Funk Master finally appeared on the UFC's radar, as he was scheduled to make his promotional debut on February 22, 2014 against the 11-3 UFC newcomer Cody Gibson. They fought competitively for the first 2 rounds, and Gibson proved to be a hard pill to swallow since he was a good wrestler too.
By Sterling trying to wall walk here.
Good job by Sterling.
College wrestlers.
Good job by Aljamain getting right back up to his feet.
However, the Jamaican started to gain momentum in the third as he got the opponent in a tight body triangle, almost finishing him via rear naked choke. After displaying such a dominant round, the judges scored the contest 29-28 in Aljo's favor, allowing him to start his UFC career victorious.
Aljamain Sterling.
In his next bout, Aljamain Sterling faced the Taekwondo black belt Hugo Viana in a fight where he was willing to make a statement that he was aiming to finish fights before the final bell. From the beginning of the fight, both fighters went aggressively against each other, going toe-to-toe and exchanging kicks and punches.
To the body that connects. And he throws kicks from different angles, very funky, and there he kicks the leg out.
Sterling started implementing his game plan better in the second round, when he took Viana down repeatedly, making him tired by forcing him to work his way up.
Center of the octagon with no cage to use. It's like he wants Sterling to strike, to open up the guard of Viana, and then pass.
In the third round, Aljo executed a beautiful single leg takedown and got himself in a dominant position to implement his deadly ground and pound strikes.
Weidman, Eddie Truck Gordon, and now Aljamain.
Viana, already exhausted, was easily overpowered and could not escape from that position.
And you know, Sterling,
And a lot of it has been the control of the range. He's used his reach of the...
The Jamaican maintained dominance from a top position, constantly punishing the opponent with strikes.
putting tremendous power.
No gas tank issues whatsoever for Sterling here.
Although the Brazilian blocked all the punches with his head, the referee was forced to wave the fight off.
Stretch, hammer fist to end it. Aljamain Sterling, victory.
Dominant performance by a guy.
On April 18, 2015, the Funkmaster was scheduled to face the UFC veteran with 10 UFC bouts on his resume up to that point, Takeya Mizugaki. The Jamaican displayed superior grappling technique for the first 2 rounds, but Mizugaki defended well and refused to be submitted.
Looks like he's got the top defending them nearly as well, but is able to get back up to his feet.
However, after 2 dominant rounds, Aljo got Mizugaki's back with his notorious body lock technique.
Where he spins out.
Sterling gave him a false sense of security to escape a rear naked choke attempt, leading the Japanese fighter into a trap. As he tried to defend the choke, Aljo got Mizugaki into a beautiful arm triangle submission, forcing the opponent to tap.
The pressure, saw that Mizugaki was leaving his arm there when Aljamain was taking that.
Then Aljo's next bout was against Johnny Eduardo. This Brazilian fighter was a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and was known as a finisher who does not leave it to the judge's hands. The Funkmaster once again showed that he is a grappling force to be reckoned with. After securing a beautifully timed single-leg takedown in the second, the Jamaican fighter punished Eduardo with heavy ground-and-pound strikes from the guard position. Like in the previous fight, Aljo gave the opponent a fake space to get up, where he trapped him into a deep guillotine choke.
If the guillotine steps over, and this is tight.
This was a very nicely calculated move as Eduardo jumped right into it and was forced to tap, granting Aljo another spectacular submission victory. Being 12-0 up to this point with a UFC record of 4-0, nothing seemed to stop the Jamaican prospect from climbing up the rankings and earning his title shot. When he fought Brian Caraway next, Aljo did what he does best, using his grappling credentials to get on his opponent's back and look for a submission.
This is going round 1.
Aljamain Sterling so long, and he just drains the life out of guy.
However, the submission specialist prevailed over the pressure in the first round and gained momentum in the second and third as he managed to out-grapple Sterling and steal the victory by causing Aljamain his first professional loss. The Funkmaster was eager to return to action as soon as possible to redeem himself from the loss, and on January 28, 2017, he was scheduled to face Rafael Assunção next, who held a big victory on his resume against the former champ TJ Dillashaw.
Shot. Can he complete it? No. Excellent. Oh, very nice attempt.
Another kick by himself nicely.
In a fight that was mostly a striking exchange, the Brazilian was slightly the better man that night as he managed to edge Aljo on the judges' scorecards, earning a split decision victory. Despite being on a 2-fight losing streak, none of those bouts defined Aljo as the inferior fighter, since both contests were lost by split decision. He lost but wasn't mentally defeated, considering that such close fights could have been scored either way. The 2 losses did not prevent the Jamaican competitor from achieving his goal. He rebounded himself by displaying dominant performances in the next 2 bouts, winning both contests unanimously. By implementing his superior grappling, he edged the high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt Augusto Mendes on the judges' scorecards. As it turned out, having a black belt against Aljo was about the same as having a free toy from a Happy Meal in his pocket. The Jamaican also won unanimously again when he defeated the former champion and seasoned vet Renan Barão next, who displayed an excellent submission defense in that fight.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing it. Yeah. He's got to adjust here.
Just when it seemed that Aljo would go on another fantastic winning streak, on December 9, 2017, he was stopped by the Brazilian striker and former title challenger Marlon Moraes. This time, no judges were needed. The Funkmaster ran straight into Marlon's knee, which knocked him out instantly. And this was the first loss where Sterling was defeated via stoppage. This was his 4th fight in 2017, and Aljo was determined to start the following year of 2018 victoriously. On April 21st of 2018, he faced the undefeated BJJ and judo black belt Brett Johns. The Funkmaster fought intelligently, mixing his striking with wrestling, and pressured Brett throughout the fight using his grappling credentials.
Defend it and get right out and end up on top.
Although Johns withstood the pressure, he lost the bout via unanimous decision. In his next fight, Aljamain faced Cody Stamann, who held an impressive MMA record of 17-1 as they battled in the UFC 228 event. In this bout, the Jamaican once again showed that he is a submission wizard, and going on the ground against him is the same as trying to wrestle a bull shark in the ocean.
But it all depends on how tight his squeeze is.
After taking Stamann's back in the second round, instead of going for his signature rear naked choke move, Aljo pulled off one of the rarest submissions in the UFC, the Suloev stretch, leaving everyone in disbelief at what just happened.
Look at him here.
But Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master, at his best tonight.
On February 17, 2019, the Funk Master was scheduled to face the third-degree black belt in Kyokushin Karate, Jimmy Rivera. In a classic striker versus grappler bout, it was expected for Aljo to use his grappling credentials to close the distance and defeat his opponent on the ground. However, Sterling went toe-to-toe against the American, displaying sharp stand-up skills and outstriking the karate specialist at his own game.
To be first. There it is, good count. Oh, spinning back.
By winning the fight via unanimous decision, Aljo proved to everyone that he is not only a superior grappler, but a solid striker as well.
Fighting prime. Nice stick with the right hand by Sterling.
We saw Sterling miss a kick and bam!
Aljo next crossed paths with Pedro Munoz, who is coming off of two impressive TKO victories against Brian Caraway and Cody Garbrandt. Considering that this fight against Pedro Munoz was a stand-up war too, it appeared that Aljo was developing a new fighting style where he enjoyed keeping the fight on his feet.
Big right hand.
The Jamaican fighter was the better striker again as he won the bout unanimously and showed the world that he was now a complete MMA athlete who could strike well and submit anyone on the ground. At this point, Aljamain Sterling was on a 4-fight winning streak, and it was only a matter of time before he earned his well-deserved title shot. He only needed to make a statement by convincingly beating a top contender that would launch his name right into the title picture. Sterling was given the opportunity to face Corey Sandhagen, a rising contender who possessed a killer instinct on the feet and the ability to end a fight with one strike. Aljo knew how dangerous Sandhagen was on his feet and knew that he must avoid a Marlon Moraes scenario no matter what. Sure enough, from the fight's opening seconds, Aljamain immediately went after Corey, stalking the American like Michael Myers, trying to close the distance sooner than your wife would spend your money in a mall. After getting the underhook, he smoothly took Sandhagen's back and instantly went to his primary instinct for the neck. The American defended well for some time, but he was overwhelmed when Aljo got the rear naked choke under the neck and forced the Sandman to tap. Not only did Aljo win this fight, but he also made it look easy, beating a top contender in a matter of seconds. By earning a spectacular victory that granted him a Performance of the Night bonus, Aljamain Sterling was finally given his long-awaited title shot. However, winning the belt was a high mountain to climb, and on top of that mountain was Peter Yan, one of the scariest UFC strikers in history. Peter Yan was considered one of the best bantamweights of all time. He is arguably the best boxing in the whole UFC, his takedown defense is on level, and his defensive grappling is always on point. On March 6, 2021, they were scheduled to fight, with the UFC Bantamweight Championship title on the line. Peter Yan was a monster. He kept tagging Aljo with powerful shots while defending most of his takedown attempts. Whenever the Funk Master took him down, the Russian was able to get up to his feet quickly.
Never shows too much emotion. Look at this. But he does not have anything here.
He didn't have the right angle on.
In the later rounds, Yan appeared to be the fresher fighter as he started to trip and throw Aljo on the ground at will.
Late takedown.
However, in the fourth, when everyone thought that he would keep punishing Aljo for one more round and earn a unanimous decision victory, the Russian showed that his fighting IQ does not match his boxing skills. He landed a vicious, illegal knee to a grounded opponent, knocking Sterling down completely wobbled.
A 100%.
The Jamaican fighter seemed hurt, and he refused to keep fighting, and by doing so, he was granted the UFC title, becoming the UFC Bantamweight champion via disqualification. By making such a move, he was widely disliked by the MMA community, since most of them thought that Aljo took advantage of the rules to win the title in a fight that he was clearly losing. Fans used to call him a fake champ or a paper champ, and most of them were still seeing Peter Yan as the legitimate UFC champion. The Funkmaster had to be off for a year due to lingering neck issues from surgery, and they were scheduled for a rematch on April 9, 2022, as the UFC 273 co-main event. Considering all the hate Sterling received during this period, he was eager and determined to prove the doubters wrong by beating Jan convincingly. Luckily for him, the second bout they met was utterly different from the first. Jan couldn't stop Aljo's takedowns, and the Jamaican fighter controlled him on the ground for most of the fight.
Oh, this is huge. Aljamain Sterling is going off.
And this is
The bout lacked action, but nevertheless, Sterling was slightly the better fighter that night, who managed to maintain control and win the grappling exchanges against Jan, who was unable to implement his deadly striking this time.
A lot of time on the back by Aljamain Sterling.
The Funkmaster won the bout via split decision, shutting down most of the doubters by proving them wrong. He showed a lot of heart and determination to prove he was the better fighter than the Russian, and he did that convincingly. In his second title defense, the new champ faced TJ Dillashaw, the former champion and one of the best bantamweights of all time. The unfortunate TJ dislocated his shoulder early in the fight and could not fight at his fullest. Sterling capitalized on that and TKO'd the former champ in the second round, earning his second victory by strikes in almost 8 years. Finally, on May 6, 2023, Aljamain Sterling was scheduled to face Henry Cejudo, the former double UFC champion, the Olympic gold medalist, and one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. The fight was full of back and forth action where both fighters went toe-to-toe, eager to show what they could do. Cejudo wanted to make one of the greatest MMA comebacks in history by winning the belt, while Sterling, by beating Cejudo, knew that he would finally earn the respect he deserved. Although Henry fought well and had some good moments in the fight, Aljo was slightly the better fighter that night, and he won the contest via split decision. By defending the belt for a third time, the Funkmaster broke the record for the most consecutive UFC Bantamweight title defenses. From a fighter who was called a fake and paper champ, to earning his deserved respect through performing outstanding performances in the octagon and breaking the UFC record for title defenses, Aljamain Sterling proved the doubters wrong and shut up the critics who thought that his days as a champion were numbered. He became one of the most complete and dominant champions in the UFC and possesses all the skills to remain champion for a long time.
Time to take a chance to fly, feeling like I'm 10 feet high. Nightmares call, you can't deny. Better find a place to hide.
And what do you guys think? Do you believe Aljo will become one of the most dominant champions the UFC has ever seen? Who would dethrone him from the top of the UFC's food chain? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to watch more videos like this, please make sure you like and subscribe to our channel.